The world's largest outdoor cocktail party. Florida and Georgia, they meet every year in Jacksonville. The next 2 years, they are not going to be in Jacksonville, but we'll get there when we get there. So let's take a look at the game a little bit. What version of these teams are we going to get? Are we going to get the Georgia that comes out against Texas and against Clemson, or are we going to get the Georgia that comes out against Kentucky and Mississippi State? On the flip side, what are we getting from Florida? Are we getting the Florida that comes out and starts the year against Miami, or are we getting the Florida that comes out against Kentucky? So that both of these teams have shown two very different versions of themselves, and Florida has kind of they have a new personnel. DJ Lagway has now taken over the quarterback position, so they just inherently look different. Georgia hasn't had a lot of personnel changes, so to speak. But Florida is a new look offense with a new look quarterback, and who has a lot of weapons. And granted, he's a freshman and he's inexperienced. He can get to you, and he has weapons outside. And if they can establish the run game, which they haven't been able to do a ton of, and I don't think that they'll likely be able to do that against the Georgia front. But nonetheless, DJ Lagway can stretch the field on you, and I think that they can get loose in Georgia's secondary. I don't know that they're going to be able to expose Georgia's secondary, but I do think there are opportunities there. So on the Georgia side, Carson Beck, while they've been winning games, he's been pretty unreliable and has not looked like his normal self or his self from the previous year. He has 8 interceptions on the year. He threw 3 picks in the Bama game. He threw 3 picks in the Texas game. So he's been pretty turnover prone. And this Florida defense, they have let 20 points or less up on their defense over the past 3 games. So it's like 20, 17, and 13. So defensively, Florida has been improving week over week. Can they stop Georgia? Georgia's a different beast on offense. But we have also seen them not be all that consistent, and we've seen them make these turnovers. So Florida could be in a position to maybe catch Georgia in an off day and keep this close. So I'm not convinced that Georgia's going to be able to run all over this Florida defense. I think the Florida defensive line, while they lost their best player last year, I think they're still pretty solid up front. And I think just collectively their defense has been looking better. I think a big question going into this is how is the Florida offensive line going to hold up against the Georgia defensive line? Because that's where I think Georgia can wreak the most havoc and really take over this game. I think if this game were to be won in a blowout fashion, it'll be because the Georgia defensive line is just manhandling the Florida offensive line, and it is forcing DJ Lagway to make throws against a really good defense that he's really not equipped to make. So I'm really looking forward to this game. I think it'll be a fun game. I think the line on the game is Georgia minus 16.5. I'm going to be taking the points with the Florida Gators here. They have 3 losses this year, and they're to A&M, Tennessee, and Miami, all which are in the top 10. So obviously Georgia is another top 10 school. So I do think that they can keep it close and that it will be a competitive game. So give me Florida plus 16.5. Follow Big Body Ball CFB on all socials.